Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mr. Fluent English.
The place where we help you improve your English and your life.
I'm your host, Paul.
We're here to cut through the noise, look at all the angles, and, pull out those key insights for you. Today, we're talking about your daily routine. I mean, think about it. How often do you meet someone, introduce yourself, maybe even a job interview, right? And the conversation just naturally goes to, so what do you do every day? Or what's your typical day like? It seems basic, maybe first-level English, but it's actually a fundamental way we connect. It opens a window into someone's life.
Yeah, it really does. And what's fascinating when you look at the research, the linguistic studies and cultural analyses we've gathered, is how this seemingly simple topic, talking about your day, it just quickly becomes this cornerstone for real communication. And it supports some of the most, essential grammar in English, too. It's a skill that genuinely builds bridges, tells you so much about habits, values, even how different cultures sort of structure their time.
Absolutely. And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We've been looking through articles on communication fluency, cross-cultural stuff on daily habits, even some data on common learner mistakes, basically to give you a shortcut, a way to talk confidently about your routine, from when you first wake up till you finally go to sleep. So you'll discover the key words, the common phrases you actually need, plus the grammar, but not in a textbook way, more like how it makes your description sound totally natural.
Right. And we'll share real examples, like how we talk about our own days. And we've got practical tips drawn straight from those sources on practicing and building that confidence.
Yeah, and we'll also flag those little mistakes, the subtle ones maybe even advanced speakers sometimes make, so you can just avoid them.
Because mastering this, describing your day, it's just incredibly useful. It's really not just a beginner thing. Our sources definitely show it helps learners at all levels connect better, more authentically, share their own stories, and really solidify their grasp of those foundational English structures. It's about making the language feel like yours.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit more then. Why is it so crucial? Beyond just learning some verbs, what does mastering this actually unlock based on what we've seen?
Well, okay, apart from the obvious thing, just being able to have that conversation,
Yeah.
the sources, especially the ones on communicative competence, they really highlight that routines are a perfect example of real-world use. When you can just smoothly describe your day, it signals you're comfortable using English in practical situations. It's not like you're just reciting a list, right? You're telling your story. And as we'll get into, it's the perfect way to really nail the present simple tense, which is, the bedrock for talking about habits. Simple tense, but it lets you describe quite complex sequences really clearly.
Yeah, that confidence, that clarity, it makes a real difference. And you mentioned grammar. It's a fantastic way to solidify those key points, isn't it? Our linguistic sources always flag this.
Oh, definitely. It's like the natural habitat for the present simple. Which, even looking at practice logs from advanced learners, sometimes people know the rule, but it gets tricky in fast conversation. Think about, I wake up at 7 a.m. or she goes to work at 9. Using it in this daily context helps make that verb conjugation feel, intuitive, not just a rule you have to remember.
And then there's that connection piece you mentioned earlier, the human side of it. What do the cultural studies say about that?
Exactly. We looked at several articles on cross-cultural communication, and they all pretty much say the same thing. Sharing routines works as a really powerful icebreaker. It gives you common ground. It allows for empathy. You learn about someone else's lifestyle, their values, maybe even their challenges. It fosters a genuine exchange. Makes the conversation less about, language rules and much more about just shared human experience.
Yeah.
It seems like a small topic, but has this significant social impact.
Right. Okay, so now we know why it's so important. Let's get into the building blocks, the core vocabulary, the phrases you need to bring your routine to life. We're talking about those simple, essential words that our linguistic surveys show pop up all the time in these conversations.
Okay, let's start with the verbs, the action words. They're the backbone, right?
Yeah.
We'll give you the verb and then an example, maybe pointing out little nuances we saw in the source material. So first up, wake up. For example, I wake up naturally around 6:30 a.m. Notice, it just means opening your eyes, not necessarily getting out of bed yet.
Good point. Then there's often a separate step. Get up, which means physically leaving the bed. So after I wake up, I usually get up around 6:45 a.m. And for a lot of people, the next thing is brush my teeth. The first thing I do after getting up is brush my teeth. Seems almost always paired with teeth, doesn't it?
It does. Then a very common one, take a shower. Example, I usually take a shower right after my morning exercise.
And it's interesting, some of our comparative linguistic texts point out take a shower is more common in, say, American English. You might hear have a shower more in British English, a subtle difference. And of course, have breakfast or eat breakfast. You could say, I have breakfast with my family at 7:30.
Right. And then for most people, it's about heading off somewhere. Go to work or go to school, as in, I go to work at 8 sharp. Or you could talk about when you begin tasks. I start work at 9 a.m., which usually means checking emails first. Yeah, and other key verbs, really clear from analyzing common stories people tell, include things like have lunch, finish work, come home, cook dinner, watch TV, and go to bed. So, examples. I have lunch with colleagues at 12:30. I finish work promptly at 5 p.m. I come home around 6:00, usually feeling quite tired. I enjoy cooking dinner while listening to music. See, adding that detail. After dinner, I like to watch TV for an hour. And finally, I try to go to bed by 10:00. These are like the Lego bricks of your routine.
Absolutely. Okay, now let's have the signposts, the time expressions that give it structure. Things like in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and at night. For instance, I go jogging in the morning before anyone else is awake, or I read a book at night to wind down.
And we also need those adverbs of frequency, right, to say how often. Words like usually, always, sometimes, never, often. You might say, I usually drink 2 cups of coffee in the morning. Or, I never skip breakfast. It's my most important meal. These words and our analysis of natural speech really confirms this. They're crucial for adding that nuance, that accuracy.
It's pretty powerful, isn't it? Just with these verbs and time words, you can already paint a fairly detailed picture. And the great thing is, our research into language acquisition shows the more you hear and use these in context, the more they just stick. Don't feel like you need to memorize a list right now. Just listen to how they're used. Speaking of which, coming up next, we're actually going to share our own daily routine so you can hear all this come together naturally.
Exactly. This is where we move from, the theory to the practice, showing how these phrases and the grammar we just mentioned fit together in a real narrative. Pay attention to the flow, the small details, how we kind of articulate the rhythm of our own days.
Perfect. Okay, I'll go first. Here's a look at my typical weekday. And I actually wrote this down recently to kind of help me stay on track. So I usually wake up around 6:30 in the morning. I don't leap out of bed though. I like a few minutes of quiet before I actually get up. Then it's straight to the bathroom, brush my teeth, take a quick shower, standard stuff. After that, kitchen. Make a strong coffee essential and eat a light breakfast, usually just toast, maybe some fruit. Around 7:30, I try to spend a bit of time checking emails or maybe do a little reading, often looking for new material for the deep dive, actually. By 8:00, I start work. Now, since I work from home, my commute is, well, 0, just across the room to my desk. I usually have lunch about 12:30, and if the weather's decent, I'll try and go for a short walk, just clear my head a bit. Then keep working until about 5 p.m. In the evening, I like to unwind, maybe watch a show, listen to music. I typically cook dinner around 7, enjoy the meal, and then I usually go to bed around 10:30.
That sounds like a really nice rhythm. Structured, but still flexible. You can really hear the flow and those personal bits like the coffee. Okay, my turn. My day often looks a bit different. I wake up at 7 a.m., and unlike you, I tend to get up pretty much straight away. That's a habit I think I picked up from one of those productivity articles we looked at. First thing, drink a glass of water and do some light stretching. Just get things moving. Then the usual suspects. Take a shower, brush my teeth, get dressed. I usually have a quick breakfast, often just cereal or maybe a smoothie if I'm feeling ambitious. By 8 a.m., I leave for work. I actually take the train, which is great, perfect time to listen to music or, yeah, sometimes even catch up on our own deep dive stuff. I start work right at 9 a.m. and usually finish around 5. I generally eat lunch with my colleagues, maybe noonish, which is good for, team stuff. After work, I often go to the gym or sometimes meet a friend for coffee instead. In the evening, I'll cook dinner. Then I might watch a little TV or maybe read a book. I try to go to bed by 10 p.m. But honestly, sometimes I stay up later if I get hooked on a good documentary or something.
Fantastic. And what really comes through there for you, our listener, is how those little personal details, listening to the show on the train, the stretching, that's what makes the routine yours. It stops being just a list of actions. It becomes a story.
Exactly. And that's a key point from our sources on effective communication. Putting those specific personal touches makes your routine more engaging, more memorable. It doesn't have to be complicated. Even just saying, I drink tea in the morning while reading the news instead of just I drink tea adds that little bit of personality.
Yeah, definitely. And there's too how we both pretty much stuck to the present simple tense for everything. I wake up, I eat, I go, I work. That really is the core structure for habits for daily life. It's simple, looks simple, but it's incredibly powerful. And those time expressions in the morning, at night, around noon, after dinner, they're like the navigation points, organizing the story. So, having heard our examples, you can start maybe sketching out your own routine. Don't worry about perfection, just start with those short, clear sentences.
Yeah, keep it simple to start, and as you practice the details, the natural phrasing, it'll come. Now, let's maybe just quickly reinforce the grammar that makes it all work.
Yeah.
The present simple tense. We know you're not new to English, so this isn't like a basic lesson. Let's focus on how it's used here and maybe some reminders that even fluent speakers find helpful sometimes.
Right. It's the workhorse tense, isn't it? For habits, routines, general truths. So, what makes it so essential here, and what are the key things to keep in mind, even if you've used it for ages?
Well, the basic rule, and you see this in all the teaching methods, is using the base form of the verb for I, you, we, they. So I wake up, we eat, they go. Simple enough. The place where consistency sometimes slips, though, is the third person singular he, she, it. That's where we add the s or is. He wakes up, she eats, it goes. Our analysis of common learner errors, even at intermediate levels, often shows that it's getting dropped when people are speaking quickly. It's a small thing, but it really affects how natural you sound.
That's a really good point. It's often not about not knowing the rule, it's about applying it consistently when you're just talking. So you say, I go to school, but it has to be he goes to school, or you work every day, but she works every day. Another one, I watch TV versus he watches TV. That is sound. They finish work at 5, but she finishes work at 5. It's about making it automatic.
Exactly. That consistent use of the es or is, it's a real marker of fluency. Now, quickly on negatives in the present simple. When you talk about things you don't do routinely, you use don't or doesn't.
Right, like, I don't drink coffee in the evening, or they don't go to the gym on weekends. Well, for the third person, she doesn't eat breakfast in the morning. And here's another crucial bit for consistency. Notice the verb goes back to the base form after don't or doesn't. It's she doesn't eat, not she doesn't eats. That's a really common slip-up we see, especially in writing.
Vital distinction, yeah. And finally, forming questions, present simple questions. We use do or does at the beginning. For example, do you get up early? Do they work on weekends? Does he drink tea or coffee? Quick mental check. Do for I, you, we, they, does for he, she, it. This structure lets you ask about other people's habits, which is obviously key for interaction.
Okay, so quick recap on this really useful tense. Base verb for most subjects, add s or s for he, she, it, use don't or doesn't for negatives plus the base verb, and start questions with do or does. Mastering it takes practice, yeah, but it drives so much daily conversation. Now, let's talk about some practical sentence patterns, maybe some question strategies that our communication guides really emphasize for sounding not just correct, but, natural and engaging.
Absolutely. Okay, first for just making statements. We often use those frequency adverbs we mentioned. So beyond the basic I wake up, you'll often slot those in. I always wake up at 7 a.m. She usually has lunch at noon. They often go to the gym in the evening. Here, these adverbs usually go before the main verb, unless the verb is to be, then they come after. Adds that detail about how regular something is.
Exactly. Or for things you avoid. I never skip breakfast. He sometimes works on weekends, but not often. We frequently take walks in the evening. Now, questions. This is where the real back and forth happens, isn't it? Our sources show that asking good questions is key to getting deeper conversations going. Simple, direct ones usually work best. What time do you wake up? What do you do in the morning? Do you have breakfast at home?
And remember, that does for the third person. If you're asking about someone else, what time does he go to work? Does she like to read before bed?
Our studies on conversational flow show these kinds of precise questions. They don't just get you the info, they also subtly show your grasp of the grammar. Great point. And don't hesitate to ask follow-up questions, right? Keep it flowing naturally. Oh, really? What time does she get up on weekends then? Or how do they spend their evenings after work? These show genuine interest, which, as the communication experts always say, is way more important than perfect grammar anyway.
Couldn't agree more. And to dig a bit deeper into habits, how often is really useful? How often do you go to the gym? How often does she eat out? A good rule of thumb based on the research. If you're not sure, just keep it simple. Even basic questions like, do you eat lunch at work? Or what time do you get home? They're perfect conversation starters and great practice.
That's so true. Asking about someone's day isn't just like an English test. It's a social skill, a fantastic way to connect and learn. So whether you're talking about your own day or asking about someone else's, these patterns will help you sound clear, confident, and, yeah, engaging. Let's maybe do a quick demo, like how these questions and answers might flow back and forth. A mini role play for you to hear.
Sounds good. Okay, I'll start. What time do you usually kick off your workday?
I generally start work around 8 a.m., being at the home office and all.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you check emails first thing?
I do, yeah. That's typically my first task when I get to the office at 9. And after work. Do you do any hobbies or anything in the evening?
Often I'll go for a walk if it's nice out, or maybe read a bit. Helps me switch off, you know?
Hmm.
How about you? Do you hit the gym often after work?
Yes.
Ah,
I usually go to the gym for maybe an hour or so. This is a good way to de-stress before I head home.
And when do you normally have dinner?
We typically cook dinner around 7 p.m. It's kind of a nice ritual. Do you watch much TV in the evenings?
not a huge amount, maybe an episode of something. I actually prefer to read a book before I go to bed. That was a good little exchange. Shows how quickly a conversation can move with these patterns. It really does. And for you listening, you can try this with friends, family, even just talking to yourself, imagining the conversation. It's a really powerful way to make these structures feel like your own. Okay, before we wrap up, let's just pull together some practical tips. These are drawn from research into what makes language learning effective, specifically for mastering your own routine description.
Right. First, and this is probably the most important, start simple. Seriously.
Yeah.
Don't try to build super complex sentences right away.
Yeah.
Just focus on those basic verbs, those time expressions. I wake up at 7. I go to work at 9. Build up from there, like adding bricks to a wall.
Exactly. And use your real routine. The studies are pretty clear on this. When you talk about things you actually do, your brain processes it better, retains it more effectively. It makes the practice feel meaningful, authentic.
Another great tip, write it down first. This lets you kind of organize your thoughts, check your words, consciously think about the grammar, like making a blueprint. You can tweak it, improve it over time. And then, the crucial step, practice speaking it out loud, regularly. With a language partner, a friend, even just talking to the mirror, the more you actually produce the language, the more automatic it gets.
And one final insight, this one from research into habit formation. Consistency beats intensity. Even just 5 minutes a day thinking about or saying your routine in English, that will make a huge difference. It's not about massive study sessions, it's about those small, steady efforts. You'll honestly be surprised how quickly those patterns start to feel natural.
Okay, and finally, let's just quickly highlight a couple of common mistakes. Subtle ones that can trip people up, even quite proficient speakers, when they're talking about routines. Just being aware of them, based on looking at learner data, is half the battle.
The first one, yeah, we mentioned it, but it bears repeating. That little is or ease for he, she, it's often the last piece of grammar to become fully automatic. Forgetting it, well, people will still understand you, but using it consistently, that makes you sound significantly more fluent, more natural. So always he goes, not he goes, she eats, not she eat.
Absolutely. Another common one is forgetting to use do or does in questions and negatives. Instead of saying maybe you wake up at 7, which can sound a bit abrupt or like checking information, aim for the full question. Do you wake up at 7 a.m.? And for negatives, make sure you use the whole structure. I don't drink coffee at night. Not something like I no drink coffee or I not drink coffee. These little function words, they're small but really important.
Good point. And lastly, just a reminder to stick with the present simple tense for routines. Sometimes learners might try using the present continuous, like I am waking up at 7 a.m. every day. Now, grammatically that tense exists, but for habits, for routines, it's definitely I wake up at 7 a.m. every day. It's about using the most natural and appropriate tense for that specific meaning.
Wow. Okay, we really have covered a lot of ground today. You should now have, well, not just the words and grammar, but a much richer sense of how to talk about your daily routine with confidence, with nuance. We've talked about why it's so valuable. It builds that English foundation, boosts your confidence, and as our sources show, really helps foster connection. We've equipped you with those key verbs, wake up, get up, brush teeth, and so on. Those time expressions like in the morning, frequency adverbs, usually, always. Plus, hopefully solidified your grip on the present simple tense. I wake up, he goes, she eats.
And yeah, don't forget adding those small personal details really makes your routine engaging. What music you listen to, where you walk, your specific breakfast, that's what makes your story connect.
Right. And to make all this really stick, remember those tips. Start simple. Use your actual routine, maybe write it down first, but definitely practice speaking out loud consistently, even just a few minutes every day. Consistency The research is clear. That's the absolute key. Improvement will come faster than you think.
So let's connect this to the bigger picture for a final thought, drawing on those cross-cultural insights we mentioned. What does describing your daily routine and asking about other people's, what does it really reveal? About habits, yeah, but also about personal values, about how different cultures maybe structure time differently. How can this simple language skill actually lead you to find unexpected things in common or maybe fascinating differences with people all over the world? It goes way beyond just practicing English, doesn't it? It's like a window into their world and maybe even into your own.
Absolutely. So go out there, practice sharing your story, your daily rhythm, and keep making those connections. They're incredibly valuable.